Раскалась, все мои жильцы выдал, замечания нет, 50-й. Доклад 50-го принял, 5-й. Расчет эвакуируем безопасную зону 60-й. Доклад 60-го принял, 5-й. Доклад 10-го принял, 5-й. 5-й, расчет убыл район эвакуации. Прошу разрешения уйти со связи с церковью. Доклад 40-го принял, 40-го разрешайте со связи, 5-й.
Ready to lift off just 24.5 minutes from now to deliver 2.7 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the Expedition 70 crew aboard the International Space Station. Several hours ago, the Roscosmos State Commission met and gave approval to fuel the Soyuz 2.1A booster. It is again fully fueled. It is 10 minutes after sunrise in the Central Asian desert at the launch site, where it's 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Over overcast skies, the Soyuz scheduled to lift off at 9:25 and 6 seconds p.m. Central Time, which is 8:25 and 6 seconds a.m. Baikonur time on Thursday morning. The Soyuz rocket was rolled out to its launch pad on Monday morning. The hangar not far from the launch pad itself at Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. It was hydraulically lifted into its vertical position, where fuel and electrical lines were hooked up, data lines as well, as the technicians made final preparations for its liftoff this evening to send the Progress on an automated 34-orbit 2-day journey for an automated docking to the aft port of the Zvezda service module. That will occur in the wee hours of Saturday morning at 12:12 a.m. Central Time, 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time. The Progress, as I said, is equipped and stowed aboard with 2.7 tons of fuel and supplies, as well as food for the crew members aboard the International Space Station. The breakdown is 5,551 pounds of cargo. That is represented by 3,258 pounds of dry cargo, 1,279 pounds of fuel, 926 pounds of water, and 88 pounds of nitrogen. Again, 2.7 tons of supplies, food, and fuel about to be delivered to the crew on board the International Space Station. That crew, the Expedition 70 crew, is asleep at this hour. They are due to be awakened for their workday about 3 hours from now, and they'll be informed of the results of tonight's launch once they are awakened and move into their daily planning conference. The Expedition 70 crew is led by Andy Mogensen of the European Space Agency, ESA. He is joined on board from left to right by Roscosmos cosmonauts Nikolai Chub, Konstantin Borisov, Oleg Kononenko, and NASA astronaut Jasmine Mogbelli of the Crew 7 crew, along with Borisov, Satoshi Furukawa of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and Laurel O'Hara, who launched back in September aboard a Soyuz rocket from this same launch pad at the Baikonur Cosmodrome that the Progress will be taking off from just 21.5 minutes from now. Waiting in the wings to launch to the International Space Station is the Crew 8 crew. They are from left to right: Alexander Grabenkin of Roscosmos, NASA astronauts Mike Barrett, the commander of Crew 8, Matt Dominic, and NASA mission specialist Jeanette Epps. They are scheduled to launch soon, their launch date dependent on the results of the launch by SpaceX of a Falcon 9 rocket that is scheduled to lift off at 1:05 a.m. Central Time, Eastern Time, 12:05 a.m. Central Time, atop a Falcon 9 rocket to bring the Intuitive Machines launch. That will be the lunar lander, the Nova C, that Intuitive Machines hopes to send on its way for a landing on the south pole of the moon on February 22nd. That launch countdown is proceeding at the Kennedy Space Center on Launch Pad 39A. That launch will determine when the Crew 8 launch will be lifting off for its rendezvous with the International Space Station. The launch events and the countdown events that will follow here in the next 20 minutes or so will result in the vehicle going on internal power a short time from now. At the T-minus 35-second mark into the countdown, one of two umbilicals that you see buttressed up against the side of the Soyuz booster will retract, Then at about the T-minus 15-second mark, the second umbilical will retract to initiate the launch sequencing command that will start with engine ignition. The turbo pumps will come up to flight speed, and the hold-down arms will retract, and we will have liftoff of the Progress 87 cargo craft en route to the International Space Station. The ride to orbit on the three-stage Soyuz rocket will take about 8 minutes and 45 seconds to complete. The first stage scheduled to separate at the 1 minute 58-second mark after launch, followed at the 3 minute 3-second mark by the jettisoning of the shroud, the clamshell shroud that envelops the Progress resupply craft itself. At the 4 minute 37-second mark into flight, the second stage engine will shut down after about 2.5 minutes of operation, and the second stage will separate just a few seconds later. Then the third stage engine will operate for about 4 minutes. There'll be a skirt separation. That's a skirt that envelops the engine area of the third stage of the Soyuz booster. The third stage will shut down at 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch. The spacecraft separation will follow just seconds later, and then within seconds after that, we will see the solar arrays and navigational antennas on the Progress resupply craft deploy, and Progress will be on its way. Over the next 2 days, there'll be a series of rendezvous burns to raise the altitude of the Progress vehicle to match that of the International Space Station before we move into terminal rendezvous operations late Friday night, early Saturday morning, resulting in that automated docking to the aft port of Zvezda, the service module, at 12:12 a.m. Central Time Saturday morning, 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time. The venting that you see there on the Soyuz booster is a combination of the burn-off of liquid oxygen, the first stage operating on liquid oxygen and kerosene for the liquid-fueled strap-on boosters that contribute to the thrust for the first stage of the Progress. Once the Progress clears the launch tower, it will arc out to the northeast, moving into an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator, which is what the International Space Station flies on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The Soyuz booster now on autonomous power. We will be hearing calls throughout the final minutes of this countdown from the blockhouse at Baikonur. About 3 minutes and 35 seconds before launch, one of the launch conductors will use a key to turn that key into the drainage position, the valves through which evaporated gaseous oxygen escapes from the fuel tanks into the atmosphere. That will appear as white vapor escaping from the rocket as the valves are closed, beginning to drain fuel back into the tanks to make sure that they're at the proper level for pressurization of those tanks. The pressurization of the first stage tanks will occur at about the T-minus 2 minute 45 second mark. And then we will go into the terminal phase of this countdown that will send the Progress on its way. All of the Progress rendezvous burns and all of the functions of the Progress will be automatically controlled by onboard computers, including the final rendezvous sequence that will be controlled by the Corps' automated rendezvous system on board the Progress. A similar system exists on the Russian segment of the International Space Station, basically sending radio signals back and forth to update the Progress on its rate of closure for its docking to the aft port of the Zvezda service module and the rate of closure.
Первый, есть переход на бортовое питание, 60-й. Доклад 60-го принял, первый.
Late Friday night, as the Progress approaches the International Space Station, the crew will be awake aboard the station, and in the service module itself, Russian cosmonauts Oleg Kononenko and Nikolai Chub will be monitoring the approach of the Progress. They will be at a workstation that has a joystick, basically, that is called the Toru system, the telerobotically operated rendezvous system, that they would take over control of and operate the manual flying of the Progress in for a docking in the highly unlikely event there would be a failure or some other problem with the Corps' automated rendezvous system. We're now at T-minus 14 minutes and counting, the countdown going extremely well. No issues being reported from the blockhouse at Baikonur. The International Space Station is currently flying 260 miles above the South Atlantic, moving from southwest to northeast, about to cross the west coast of Africa. We're coming up on the T-minus 13-minute mark. All of the key events about to unfold in the final phase of the countdown that will result in the liftoff of the Progress. Again, liftoff time 9:25 and 6 seconds p.m. Central Time, which is 8:25 and 6 seconds a.m. Baikonur time at the launch site. A little over a month from now, on that same launch pad, the Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft will be launched with Soyuz Commander Oleg Novitsky, NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson, and Belarus spaceflight participant Marina Vasilevskaya on board. Novitsky and Vasilevskaya will spend a little less than 2 weeks on board the station and will come home on April 2nd along with NASA astronaut Laurel O'Hara. A good view of the three-stage Soyuz 2.1A booster on Launch Pad 6, Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Again, it is overcast. We are likely to lose the view of the rocket pretty quickly after launch. Hopefully we will be getting a view from the upper stage camera on the Soyuz as it makes its way toward orbit. Again, 8 minutes and 45 seconds from launch to orbital insertion, followed seconds later by spacecraft separation and then the deployment of the solar arrays and the navigational antennas.
Готовность к пуску 5 минут, первый. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял, 20-й. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял, 30-й. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял, 50-й. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял, 60-й. Готовность к пуску 5 минут принял, 70-й. We are hearing that there is a readiness poll
At the Baikonur blockhouse, everything continues to proceed very smoothly as we are inside 10 minutes until liftoff. And another view provided by Roscosmos through the Tsenki Communications Group down in Baikonur, showing the Soyuz booster on its launch pad at Site 31. This is the primary pad from which both Soyuz crewed missions as well as Progress uncrewed missions are launched from. T-minus 8 minutes 45 seconds and counting. About a minute and 45 seconds from now, the launch conductor in Baikonur will rotate a key that will initiate all of the final sequencing, basically a ground launch sequencer that you would be familiar with during space shuttle days. All of the vehicle functions will be automatically commanded at that point.
Есть готовность ПТР до 30. Доклад 30-го принял первый.
T-minus 8 minutes and counting. All of the launch preparations have gone very smoothly. As mentioned earlier, the vehicle rolled out to this launch pad on Monday morning, where technicians completed all the final preparations. And earlier today, several hours ago, the State Commission met and gave approval to begin fueling the three-stage Soyuz booster. This view now from a balcony camera in the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow, showing the flight controllers who will be taking over control of the flight of the Progress at spacecraft separation.
Доклады руководитель работ принял. Первый. Готовность 1 у нас уже на 70-й. Доклад 70-го принял первый. 60-му сбросить шел объекта первый.
T-minus 7 minutes and counting. The automated launch ground sequencer is now in control of Soyuz booster functions.
Первый. Сброс шел объекта проведен. Замечаний нет. Космический аппарат запуску готов. 60-й. Доклад 60-го принял. Первый. Есть готовность систем комплекса к пуску 30-й. Доклад 30-го принял. Первый.
Coming up on the T-minus 6 minute mark. The range is clear at Baikonur. No issues being reported.
Есть ключ на старт.
About a minute or so from now, engineers at the blockhouse in Baikonur will activate strip chart recorders on which telemetry from the launch vehicle is recorded for later analysis. Within the upper stage of the Soyuz booster is the Progress itself, loaded with 2.7 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the Expedition 70 crew. T-minus 4 minutes 40 seconds and counting. Soon we will hear the call of a purge. That means that fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines are purged with nitrogen that fireproofs them by removing vapors of fuel and oxidizer. T-minus 4 minutes and counting. The International Space Station approaching the west coast of Africa. Again, moving from southwest to northeast. At liftoff, the Progress will begin its journey to catch up to the station for its automated docking to the aft port of the Zvezda service module in the wee hours of Saturday. Again, you see buttressed up against the side of the Soyuz booster 2 umbilicals. The oxidizer and fuel valves we are hearing are now closed as planned. We should be hearing the call for pressurization of the fuel and oxidizer tanks momentarily. That white vapor that you see at the base of the launch pad is additional or extraneous fuel being purged from the rocket so that it is at the correct weight with the correct amount of fuel for its 3-stage trip to orbit. Those 2 umbilicals, the first will retract at about T-minus 35 seconds, the second at about T-minus 17 seconds to initiate the engine sequence start. Coming up on T-minus 2 minutes. Coming up on T-minus 90 seconds. Mark, T-minus 90 seconds and counting. Everything in order. Countdown proceeding normally. We are now at T-minus 1 minute and counting. The vehicle now is on internal power, and there is the retraction of the first umbilical. Ground support feeds now terminated to the vehicle. The auto sequence now initiated. The second umbilical is retracting. The launch command now being issued for engine ignition. We have engine start. The engine's coming up to flight speed, turbo pumps at flight speed. And liftoff. All engines at maximum thrust. We have liftoff of the 87th Progress resupply vehicle to the International Space Station. The vehicle has cleared the tower. Roll and pitch program initiated. All parameters are nominal for first stage performance. All engines on the first stage are performing nominally according to the blockhouse in Baikonur. Structural parameters are all reported to be normal, 42 seconds into the flight. The engine's performing normally, vehicle stabilization, structural parameters all normal. Engine pressures are nominal at the 1 minute mark into the flight. We're less than a minute away from first stage separation. Good pitch and roll program for the vehicle. Arcing out to the northeast. Its chase to reach the International Space Station underway.
Двигатель первой и второй ступени работает нормально.
1 minute 45 seconds into the flight. Standing by for first stage separation.
Есть выключение двигателей боковых блоков, есть отделение боковых блоков. Стабилизация изделия устойчивая.
First stage separation confirmed, and the launch shroud will be coming up for its separation, enveloping the Progress craft a short time from now, 2.5 minutes into the flight.
Двигатель второй ступени работает нормально.
This is animation on the front screen of the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow. You can see the ascent plot on the front board at their control center. Coming up on the 3-minute mark, everything continuing extremely normal with all of the vehicle functions, good yaw, pitch and roll program, good engine performance now on the second stage. And we have launch shroud jettison. The second stage shutdown will come at the 4 minute 37 second mark into the flight, about a minute from now. About 5 minutes and 10 seconds of powered flight remaining.
Полет нормальный. Время КП 8 часов 25 минут 5 секунд 527 миллисекунд. Стабилизация изделия устойчивая.
This view now from a television camera on the upper stage of the Soyuz, as we are now 4 minutes 15 seconds into flight. Standing by for second stage shutdown about 15 seconds from now. All of the booster structures are showing normal parameters, good engine performance, standing by for second stage SEP. There's the third stage skirt separation. Second stage separation is confirmed. The Progress now being raised into its final stage of ascent by the singular power of the third stage engine on the Soyuz 2.1A booster. 5.5 minutes into the flight, about 3 minutes and 15 seconds of powered flight remaining. The Stage 3 engine is running normally according to the reports from the blockhouse in Baikonur. Launch time was confirmed at 9:25 and 6 seconds p.m. Central Time, 8:25 and 6 seconds a.m. Baikonur time on Thursday morning. 6 minutes into the flight, 2 minutes and 45 seconds of powered flight remaining. All of the booster structures are reported to be very stable. Everything is proceeding normally on the uphill climb to deliver the uncrewed Progress 87 resupply craft into its preliminary orbit. Six minutes, 45 seconds into the flight, 2 minutes of powered flight remaining. Seven minutes, 10 seconds into the flight. Good pitch, roll and yaw program for the Soyuz booster, operating normally on the power of its third stage engine. About a minute and a half of powered flight remaining. Again, this view from a camera on the upper stage of the Soyuz booster that lifted off a short time ago from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, beginning a 2-day journey for the uncrewed Progress resupply craft to reach the International Space Station. Third stage engine continues to perform normally at the 8-minute mark into the flight. Eight minutes, 15 seconds into the flight, about 30 seconds of powered flight left. We are standing by for third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation just a few seconds from now. Third stage shutdown confirmed and spacecraft separation. We should see the solar rays begin to unfurl momentarily. There they go. And the confirmation has been received of a normal solar ray deploy as well as the navigational antennas. A flawless ascent from the launch pad to its preliminary orbit for the Progress resupply craft. 8 minutes and 45 seconds from launch to orbital insertion. Everything went by the book. This view now from the external television camera on the Progress vehicle with the data overlay that you should be familiar with at this point, as the initial systems of the Progress are being tested by the flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow. In the next few hours, there'll be 2 DV burns, delta velocity burns, that will begin the stair-step increase in altitude for the Progress vehicle as it begins its trek to match the altitude of the International Space Station, setting up the start on Friday night of the automated rendezvous sequence that will result in an automated docking to the aft port of the Zvezda service module on Saturday morning at 12:12 a.m. Central Time, 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time. All of the Progress systems are being checked out and reported to be in good configuration as the Progress begins its chase to reach the International Space Station in the early morning hours on Saturday. With the Progress now safely in orbit, beginning its 2-day journey to reach the International Space Station, we can take a look at a different view of the launch as provided by Roscosmos down at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. This was the replay, engine start, liftoff from launch pad cameras that Roscosmos has available to it, and liftoff as the Soyuz booster cleared the tower, arced out to the northeast to begin an 8-minute, 45-second journey to the point of third stage separation and the delivery of the Progress vehicle with 2.7 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the crew on board the International Space Station. And back with the view from the external camera on the Progress as it begins to flex its muscles and being checked out by the Russian flight controllers in Korolyov outside of Moscow. With that, we'll wrap up our coverage with a quick tease for our rendezvous and docking coverage that will be coming up Friday night. We will be on the air Friday evening at 11:30 p.m. Central Time, early Saturday morning, February 17th at 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time, with rendezvous and docking, the docking to take place by the Progress 87 cargo craft to the aft port of the Zvezda service module, docking scheduled at 12:12 a.m. Central Time, 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time. So until then, we'll see you back here at the Johnson Space Center as you take a final look from a balcony camera at the Russian Mission Control Center half a world away in Korolyov outside of Moscow. For now, we bid you a good evening. This is Mission Control Houston.